ask yourself, you know what you need to do. The thing is, don't lie to yourself about it. Just do it. Take care of business. Remember, keep in mind what grades you need, not what grades you want. What do you need to keep going through your program? What do you need, right? Don't just get it. You don't need to show off. That's what I tell you. Graduate school leaves ego at the door. Okay. 8,800 cases of the virus now. In America, now it's person-to-person concern. Get your masks. Don't do that. Okay. Where did we get? Oh, here we go. Okay, we did a weird draw on the board hard drawing thing. Can we draw one real fast? Probably. I'll draw. Let me see what you can do with this stuff. I'm gonna draw real quick. Too fast. Okay, there's one side. It goes like this somehow. How long did that take? 12 seconds. So you can do it too. Don't tell me it took 4 hours. It did not. I know. Okay. Back in the day, it took me 4 hours because I was drunk doing it. Okay, so what do we got here? What's this chamber here? Right atrium, the right ventricle. In order to get there, we got to go through what's here? Tricuspid valve, right? One of the triple cusps, right? Okay, fine. What's the tube right here? Inferior vena cava, and then up top is the superior vena cava. The little dotted hole is the opening of the coronary sinus. The opening, where is the coronary sinus? It's hidden in the myocardium somewhere. We can't really see it. It's like a big pipe inside. That's all you see of it. And sometimes you don't even see that much. In the models, you can't see it at all. It's faked out. So we're going downtown here. What if I had some muscles up in the atria? What are those called? Pectinate. What if they had wiggly, muscly stuff in the ventricles? Not yet. Those would be these. So what are the meat beams?
Oh, the meaning of papillary.
No, that's down at the bottom. Papillary means bump. Meat beam. Trabeculae carneae. Literally translate to meat beam. So we got the trabeculae carneae lining the walls, pectinates lining the walls, and the atria. Papillaries down below, what do? They contract like all muscles do. As they contract, they're attached to these cusps. How? Via chordae, tendiniae, the heartstrings, and then pull with every contraction, yay. If I wanted the blood to go up in this picture, I need to squeeze that big giant right ventricle. I need to shoot it through another thing made of circles, not flaps, no strings. What's this called? It's a semilunar. Which one? Right side semilunar. You could call it the pulmonic or the pulmonary semilunar valve because it's heading up to this thing right there that I almost gave away. What's the thing here I'm drawing an X on? Pulmonary trunk is the common term. It splits into left and right. Coronary arteries, which go to the lungs, where we pick up O2 and drop off CO2. How do I get back? To the other side, right? We got two pumps here. So I got to come in on the left side after I come back. I should have double way in here. What are these four guys? That's pulmonary veins because they're coming back to the heart. They're weird. They're oxygen-rich veins, but they're veins nonetheless. And they empty into what chamber? Left atrium, right? Welcome to the heart. You always come into an atrium. No dot circles here, just four tubes coming in. You got a big old meat pump, the big mama pump down here, left ventricle. The pump that we care about. All the other pumps, who cares? That's the pump. So I kind of messed it up, but we should have another semilunar and another flappy one. This flap's got two. Remind me what the muscles are lining the atria. Pectinates. What are the wiggly meat beams lining the ventricles? They carneate. At the bottom we should expand into two nipple-like muscles called papillary muscles connected by heartstrings known as chordae tendiniae to regulate the motion. I'll see that in a minute. Blood wants to go squirt, nowhere to go yet, so give him a tube to go. I'm not worried about any of the branches, I'm just drawing a big old reach over tube. So what's the valve called? You could call it, because it's a semilunar, a left semilunar, or you could say it's the aortic valve, because it leads to the big old A, or There you go. I mean, it takes about 5 minutes to do that. You can learn to do that. Try it. Try to do that. That's the structures. Now we got to make it go. So it sounded like about a quarter of you know that fairly well. Which is common. We know the rest of the stuff, but that's the main story. Is where's the blood going? Where's it going next? And where's it going next? And where's it going next? So now we have to learn this rhythm thing. Once we get the flow down, yeah, there's some side stories about the sac. That's nice, but it's not going to change your life if you don't know any of that. Talked about coronary, got to feed myself. Kind of with that story, it takes a little bit because it's not that super important. So what we need to do is the real deal. So the majority of test questions on heart will probably come from this point forward. Yeah, there'll be plenty back here. But that's mainly, name the tube, name the chamber. It's the anatomy stuff. The physiology is where it gets, we got to think about stuff more, right? Let's go back to what we know from AMP1. There's a neuron axon. I want to turn it on. I want to make an action potential. Remember this? Mm-hmm. So let's graph this out over time. This column will be energy in millivolts. This axis will be time. Okay, I don't know how well you got taught this. We used to teach it so well we made you do an essay. I know it sounds gross, but after we finished, guess how many people knew this? Everybody knew it so well they could explain it in an essay. Since we stopped doing that, the grades on this, they just tank. So people forget it because we don't do the essay anymore. If I'm trying to find a base number for this, who knows? Yeah, negative though, right? Minus 70 millivolts. So we're going to change all this, but this is what you learn for skeletal muscle. At negative 70 millivolts, what does that mean? Well, that means if I have a membrane here, a cell, I could jab in a little voltmeter. I could actually read the voltage across that membrane, just like you could read the voltage of your battery. It would read negative 70. If I could put it inside and stick it out, it would read plus 70. But I'm sticking it in. So what that's telling me is the inside's negative. That's what it tells me. People don't just know this when they see it, but it's telling me the inside surface is slightly negative relative to the outside surface. That's just one of those things. So you can kind of show it. Nobody told you you acted like a battery. Well, you do. You know how a battery works. You know how it all works. As most people know, open package, stick in battery. That's how it works. So just like the lights, I don't know how they work. Flip it on. Okay. Why? Why is this true? It has to do with the title. Based on the ionic composition of these fluids, ICF, ECF, what's that stand for? Intracellular fluid, also known as cytoplasm. Extracellular fluid, right? You've done this somewhere. It wasn't fun, but you did it. You might have forgotten it all. That's why we have to refresh here, because we got to do it again for the heart. We just have to change the numbers and add an extra step. Okay. Why? What ion dominates the ECF? If you looked at the extracellular fluid and you were to count all the ions there, who wins the game? Boom, it is sodium, and that is always the answer every single time. That's why it's plus. Yes, there are plenty of other ions out there, but sodium's the king. Sodium dominates the extracellular surface, so it's a plus charge. Who dominates the inside? Potassium, what's its charge? It is not negative. It is also plus. That's a problem. If you're thinking, you're just memorizing, hey, sodium out, potassium in, no problem. That doesn't make a battery. So what's the deal with that? Does anybody know? Did anybody ever get told? What?
What's negative?
Yeah.
Because Na has no positive charge than K.
It does, but there's a better reason for that. better reason. An anion, what's an anion? Negative, it's a negatively charged like chloride, HCO3 minus. The thing is, there's a bunch of anions inside cells. So many negatively charged ions like these guys and many others that they turn to negative. But this tricks people. They're both positive ions. It sounds good that this one's more positive, but it's actually these ions that make that negative on there. But it causes people to mess up because they're both plus. Okay, let's start doing something to it. Right now it's doing nothing. It's just resting, right? So how would I draw that on a graph? That's hard. That's called RMP, right? You saw that on another slide. Resting membrane potential. In a skeletal muscle cell, it's -70. In a heart, it's different. It's lower. Here's the RMP. How do I turn them on? How do I make a potential? Someone tell me what you know. I don't want to do the whole thing. What do I do here? Well, keep it.
Threshold?
Okay, we have to reach threshold, but how do I do that? What is threshold? -55-ish. Ish. It's about 15 millivolts less. Ish. Doesn't have to be. How do we get there? Well, what are we doing? We're taking it from -70 and it's going to -55, right? So what are we doing to this internal surface? We're making it more positive. Yeah, that's what happened. We have to make it more positive. What's a way we could do that? Well, come on in. I could bring sodium into the cell, right? Through little membrane channels. Sodium, potassium pumps and all that fun business. What happens if sodium comes into the cell there? What happens to the picture? Yeah, it goes up. Yeah, it becomes more positive. Ooh. They didn't quite wake it up all the way, right? Sometimes we refer to this, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, a local depolarization. I don't know how much you got taught. I go hardcore on this. My guys know this stuff. A local depolarization, weak depolarization. An IPS, no, an EPSB, if you learned it super hardcore. That'll take us up to the tickle point. You gotta get up to the tickle point. If you don't, he's gonna hit snooze and go back to bed. So, we bring in sodium, it goes plus. And then when it hits threshold, what happens? More sodium comes in, right? A whole bunch of it comes in. So what's gonna happen to that thing now? It's gonna go way up, right? This is called full-blown depolarization. So what we have to do is first depolarize the membrane. We can do a local or weak one, then if it gets to threshold, we hit it with a full blast. What causes depolarizations? Specifically what? Sodium going which way? Into a cell. That is always true on every test you ever take. Sodium is always the depolarizer, every time in every story forever. Sodium's the depolarizer, and it depolarizes by going in. Even if you have no clue, that is the truth forever. Sodium is the depolarizer. If you see it go up, it's because sodium's coming in every single time. Even if it doesn't make sense, who cares? That's the truth. It doesn't like this, being woken up. It wants to go right back to rest. It wants to do this, right? What's the top called? An action potential? Remember all this? What's the height of that action potential? Plus 30, always. Yeah. Just refreshing memories. I'm not testing in any of this specifically, right? We just have to know this to know what's coming next. Which is the same thing, but more. So you'll see. How do I repolarize it? Remember, what's going on with the line? It's dropping back down, it's becoming more negative. What could I do? How could I do it though? Well, ask me this. What did I do to make it depolarize? I pumped in sodium. What can I do to repolarize it? I could pump that sodium right back out, couldn't I? But it's not available. Once it comes in, it gets diffused through the cell and it's not available to be pumped back out. But guess what? I have another plus guy that's very abundant down here, right? Just chuck him out. So now let's repol. Repolarization is the downward stroke. I just put a 3, why not? What causes repolarization? Not the sodium coming out. That would make logical sense. That's what I would do. But the potassium effluxes, right? Yeah, so repolarization, anytime you see the drop, it's due to what? Okay, going out. It's that simple. Why do they spend 4 hours on it? I don't know. It's that easy. If it goes up, it's because sodium's coming in. If it drops back down, it's because potassium's going out. Those are always true. That's how it was back in the skeletal muscle days. And we remember that, and that's all fine, and yay, we just need an extra step now. So all that is still true. Sodium is the depolarizer, potassium out is the repolarizer. That is always true. We just had to add calcium into this mix. The heart relies on calcium to do its thing all the way. So we need to not only do sodium polarize or depole and then K repole, but we need to know what the hell is calcium going to do. So let's add that to this mix. Okay, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to draw the same thing. Step 1, step 2, step 3, calcium in, so on and so on. So here we go. We know it's rhythmic, but it is an automaticity, so you could just combine them and say it's autorhythmic. And you know what that means, don't you? Who sets the heart rate? The heart. The brain does not. The heart sets its own rhythm. The brain can influence that rhythm by getting it faster or slower, but the heart sets its rhythm. We need to talk about who does it and when and the fire and timing and all that. Autorhythmic. Okay. The band leaders. Right? Only 1% are autorhythmic. If everybody's a band leader, that sucks. It's too many leaders, right? One guy, or maybe a group of guys, that's the leader. So 1% of cardiac tissue are what we call the pacemakers. I'm going to call them band leaders. They're autorhythmic. They set their own rhythm. You need to know the timing. It's not 1 per second. It's not 60 beats a minute. That would be not good. It's too slow. Okay, what are the rest then? 99% are what then? If 1% is autorhythmic, what are the other ones? The other ones are the normal, plain Jane, bifurcated, contractile, striated muscle cells. That 99% of the heart is muscle cells. I mean, we're just going to fake it. Only a teeny amount are band leaders. The rest is the band. Someone's got to say toot your horns, and someone's got to toot the horns. And if you don't do it in rhythm, it sounds like crap. If your heart doesn't do it in rhythm, it falls apart. You die. So we need to get this, not only rhythmic, but an auto rhythm. We've got to find out how that's established. You can take a turtle's heart and pull it out of the turtle, and it'll beat independent of the body for 3 days. Why would you do that? Indians used to do that, tie it on a string in front of their teepee to ward off evil spirits. If you can take a heart out of a turtle and it beats outside the body, that's pretty magical, right? We say things like, I feel it in my heart. No, you do not. Why do people say that? I do not know, but people do. So the heart is a mysterious thing, but we know you feel in the brain, not in the heart. What's this? Refractory period. What's that?
That's the hump we found.
Okay, so we went da 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 like this, right? If I were to say sketch out a period of time where we have a refractory period, what would you think? I would pick right between we start to get you turned on to where we go back to rest. I know I'm cheating a little bit. I'm not showing hyperpole and all that. There it is. From the time you get tickled to the time you stop being tickled. This is refractory. It happens in skeletal muscle. It's just so it can't contract while we're contracting. Makes sense. The heart, it says there, has a very long refractory period, has a long recovery period. Makes sense. You don't want your heart to beat while it's beating. You want it to do its thing and recover and do its thing and recover and do its thing and recover. You don't want it to beat while it's beating, right? So that's what that means. It's got a very long, we'll see why. It's going to be due to calcium. That's going to give us that prolonged refractory period. So we got the main point here. Most of the heart is just normal, hey, I'm gonna be an instrument player. There are a few cells that actually have the ability to say, go now, go now, go now, go now. If they're out of rhythm, everyone's out of rhythm. Okay, let's look here. Maybe we should just look here. Don't look at the purple one, that's irrelevant. Look at the blue, it almost looks like what we drew, right? It just starts at -90. I'm not gonna ask you that though. But it is a little bit harder to do this, but so what? Don't really mess around here. Step one. What's this called? Depolarization. What causes it? Sodium coming in. I know this already because I just said it. And then next time I say it, I'll say it the exact same way. Depol, sodium in. Always. Step 3, when I repol, who's causing me to repol? K going out. Does it say that? K out. Efflux. Repol. Yeah, we just need to add the calcium step, the middle part. All that's the same. Just like skeletal muscle, heart muscle has to have sodium come in the cell to depolarize it. Just like a normal cell, skeletal muscle cell, it needs potassium to be pumped out to repolarize it. The thing that's different is that plateau. We do not have a plateau event. And skeletal muscle just goes up and down. So look what's causing that. Calcium in. There's the little note. Calcium coming in the cell causes that prolonged plateau, that prolonged refractory period. And it's showing the refractory period here. From the time I get tickled to the time I'm not tickled anymore. This is my refractory period. It's fairly long. We don't need to worry about the time yet. It's fairly long compared to a skeletal muscle because of that plateau. And that's all you need to know. The refractory period's longer because there's a plateau. It's caused by calcium coming in, just like that. You don't have to understand how all that functions in the cell. There it is, no problem. In fact, what I want to show you here, and what we probably should put is, this is the 99%. This is the bifurcated, striated band players. This is the skeletal, the cardiac, not skeletal. It's cardiac muscle, not the pacemaker. Pacemaker looks different. This guy goes to sleep. Then he does this thing, then he goes back to sleep. Pacemakers don't sleep. So if you can see a rest, you know you're looking at a normal muscle cell. This is heart muscle, this is cardiac tissue, this is most of the band players right here. The guys that toot the horns, this is how they work. They depol by sodium coming in, they stay depolarized through this plateau event by calcium coming in, and they repol by K going out. That's what that says. Let's see. Depol, sodium in. Yep. Blah, 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 blah. Calcium in causes a plateau. It makes the point here. Repol by K out. We know those rules. It's just the same rules every time. But also you must turn off those. You got to turn off the calcium influx. It's a minor point, but you can't keep that coming in, just like you can't keep sodium coming in. You got to shut it off. Where does it show that, say that? In the picture. It says it right here. Repol is, yes, K out, but also shut the CA doors. That's the only addition. I'm going to put it in parentheses, just like I did there. There's the only little thing. Everything else is the same. Sodium is a depolarizer. K is the repolarizer. Calcium keeps us long depol. It's just a memorized thing. You don't have to be a cardiologist today. That's what they're showing here. Now it's going to look different from the pacemakers. It's just the normal band players. They don't do anything unless they're told to do something. They just sit, they'll stay at rest. You'll die. If all it is band players, there's no leaders, they won't do anything. So we got to get to the leaders. Okay, the autorhythmic cells. I'll get through this. This is going to be called the cardiac conduction system. Blah, blah, blah. We'll draw pictures of the cardiac conduction system. We need to say who toots and who toots after, and who toots next, and who tells this and who tells what. We'll draw a picture of it in a minute. But let's talk about the pacemakers first. Unstable. pacemaker potential. Here's what that means when I show you, no rest. There will be no flat line on a pacemaker cell. That's how you can spot it if you see a chart of it. There will be no rest. It's still going to be the same rules. In fact, it's the exact same rules we just learned. Sodium N is a depolarizer. Calcium N is the middle part. I'll show you in a second. That's actually going to be the AP there. It's not the plateau here, that's the spike. And then the same game, let's take K out, but also close the calcium channels. It's the same story. I'll show it on the picture in a minute just to show you. It's the same game. Sodium is the depolarizer. Calcium does something in the middle. Now we got to shut that calcium off and pump out K to reset it. I'll just draw it on the picture here so you can see it. There it is again. 1, the line's going up. That's depolarization. What always causes depolarization? Sodium. Which way is it going? In the cell. Influx. Okay, sodium influx. Notice it says never a flat line. There's no rest here. I'm always turned on. When I learned this a long time ago, I called this the sodium drip. And I pictured a little guy laying on a table with Chinese water torture, just dripping on his forehead. He can't go to sleep because there's sodium dripping on his forehead all day. Doesn't seem like much, but go try it. It's horrible. Can't rest with sodium dripping on your head. So sodium's always dripping in. Very slow. Slow depol. It's still depol. You're still depolarizing with sodium coming in. But it's slow drip. 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 At some point, damn it, I hate you. I'm waking up. There's threshold. Don't worry about the numbers. We see that dotted line saying, now I'm going to get real excited, but it's not a flood of sodium now, like it would be in a normal skeletal muscle cell. What causes the middle phase? Calcium N. It's got 2 pluses. Yeah, calcium influx now causes that surge, that spike, that AP. Don't worry about the numbers. So we have this constant slow depol, but it's still depolarization. Full-blown all the way depol now is, of course, calcium influx. It causes the spike here. It's a teeny bit different than this picture. Calcium here causes a plateau. Here, calcium causes the spike. I'm not going to get very picky, but there'll be a few questions on this. And then if I want to reset, I do it the way I always do. I have to repol, and I know I'm going to have K come out, because that's what always happens. But also now I need to close calcium. I mean, that's it. That's the story. It used to seem hard to me, but it's just the same concept from skeletal muscle with an extra step in the middle called the calcium step. Now these here, it's hard to ask fill in the blank type questions here. Or if I did ask them, you wouldn't like them. So when we get to things like this, there'll be more multiple choice type ones. Okay, so there's the story. I'm not going to ask, the whole test is not going to be about that, but if I were you and you don't have a clue, the 1, 2, 3 blue word pictures are always good. And this is another one of those 1, 2, 3 blue word pictures. They're always well written. And they just get to the point. Without the extra blah, blah, blah. So the point here so far is these are the pacemakers. These guys never rest. It's just drip, 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 drip. And as soon as they say here, they wake up and say, everybody toot your horns. And they try to go back to sleep. And then wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Hey, everybody toot your horns. And I'm going to go back to sleep again. These guys are just waiting for a sound. They'll rest. I just tooted on my horns. I'm going to wait for that pacemaker to say, toot your horns. Oh, I heard it. Fire. Once you see that in your mind, then you got it. We're going to have some leaders tell the followers to do their thing, and it better be in a rhythm. Right? Coordination, distribution of impulses. That's what the picture is going to be here. Called the cardiac cycle. I'm going to show this in at least 3 different ways. This is one of those things where I would take it in every way you can get it, and then just smush it into a Play-Doh ball of knowledge and eat it. So this is something where I can tell you 5 different ways. One of them might stick. That's the one to start with studying, and then try to add the other ones to it. Sometimes this is just common sense to people, but not really. It's like, do you know how your combustion engine works in your car? No. So let's try it. What's the word here?
Systole.
Systole. Systole is how to say it. Systole. And the one under it must be diastole. Systole and diastole. That's what they mean. A systole is a squeeze. Systolic would be an adjective to describe it. My fist is diastolic. Now it's systolic. Now it's diastolic. Now it's systolic. It's that easy. Squeeze or open. If a heart chamber is systolic, it's squeezed. If a heart chamber is diastolic, it's open. That's all those words mean. Nothing more than that. I'm either shut or I'm open. Systole, shut. SS, systole, shut. Contracting, squeezing. Yeah, this is true, but I didn't know where to put it, so. We talk about the atria squeezing. You'll see me do this up here, squeeze the top. We don't really have to, though. I mentioned this point, if you're standing in anatomical position, most of your blood just falls down with gravity. The squeeze is just like, that's nice, that's for trying. But it doesn't have to. You can deliver some of that blood. So we're gonna pretend the squeezing matters. And it goes like this, squeeze the top, both atria. Remember, there's 2 pumps, but they're gonna be firing simultaneously. Squeeze the 2 atria, open. Squeeze the 2 ventricles, open, and pause. Squeeze the 2 atria, open. Squeeze the 2 ventricles, open, and pause. In your mind, if you know where the blood's gonna go when I squeeze, because you know the anatomy, it makes it really easy to deal with this. But we haven't studied it yet, so it's gonna seem really abstract, but I'm showing you. I promise you, this is how I got through these tests, is with these drawings. So, if you like this, then you're like me. Because I use these a lot to get through my heart tests. One of them it didn't work out so well. So sometimes you have the killer heart test. Let's do it. I'm going to actually change my background so I can get a good black background. I can draw some colors and get it popping out of the screen. You can do this on your talks too. You can edit them as you wish. Okay, let's do this. If you have your notes handy, you'll see what I'm about to show you. I'm about to show you all this stuff here. I'm going to show it to you again, right? And I'm going to show it to you again, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're looking at cardiac conduction. No, it's not going to just suck in your brain, probably. It didn't mine. I had to work on it for a while. And it's not like it's one straight story. You got to kind of stop and restart and jump over here. So the numbers are important. I'll try to give you the numbers at the same time that I'm giving the rest of this. Let's try it. Oh, are you kidding me? Is it screwing? Yeah. It's not there at all. Okay, we need a heart, but I'm going to put them together. We're going to kind of cheat and look at a heart that's like half open, half closed. We get this right first before you start doodling it, just to make sure. What's going on down there? I want to know. Okay. You should see it. 2 guys in the sleeping bag. What are the 2 top ones? The left around atria and the bottom one's the ventricles. What's the thing in the middle separating the ventricles? The interventricular septum. You could have probably made your apex a little wider if you wanted to. I might try to sneak that in real quick. Okay. Where do we start this story? Remember, what do we want to do? We want atria. How would I describe that except say squeezy squeezy? What's a better thing to say, squeezy, squeezy? Yeah, we want simultaneous systole, right? Simultaneous atrial systole. Is that too fancy? It's not. It's not. Okay, what does that mean? Simultaneous atrial systole. Squeeze them together.
Yeah.
Then what do we want? We want to do simultaneous atrial systole followed by simultaneous ventricular systole. And then what do we want to do? Everybody open and chill for a second, or a millisecond or two, right? And then do it again. Squeeze atria, squeeze ventricles, pause. Boop, 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 boop. That's what we want to do here. So let's give it some rhythm. First button is on the right atrium. There is not homologous structure on the other side. Which is strange. You might ask yourself why. It probably tells you how it evolved. So we can get into that if you want to stay. That one is on top of basically the atrium. Let's call it the SA node, as you see right there, sino-atrial. I'm just going to put SA right now. You can put whatever you want to put. SA node. There's a clump of pacemakers. It's not just one mega pacemaker, that's a clump of pacemakers. Still, the 1%ers, there's where they live. The band players, they're in the muscle. They need to be told to toot. Right now, they're just sitting there resting. We know this guy is not resting. He never rests. He's being dripped on, sodium drip. He's about to wake up. Right? He's about to wake up. When he wakes up, calcium will rush in and he's going to fire off. So we need to know his rhythm. So he will fire every 800 milliseconds. If you're bad at math, I'll help you. 0.8 seconds. I would know both of those terms. 800 milliseconds is 800 thousandths of a second, or you would call that 0.8 seconds. It's not a full second per beat. It's too slow. It needs to be faster than 1 second. If you could crunch the numbers real quick, again, if you're bad at math, I'll help you. That comes out to a convenient, perfect 75 BPM. That should be a normal heart rate. 75 beats per minute. 60 is too slow. Quite a bit too slow. And they signal an issue. 100, way too fast. Okay. We got a test coming up. Heart rate probably went up a little bit. But you weren't in charge of that, right? It's your brain, it's your nervous system, it's the heart itself. Says, oh, freak out. Okay, what now? What does he do when I turn him on? Well, he makes those potentials. Where they're always getting excited and they're going to scream out player instruments. And then you're going to drip, 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 player instruments. So when I say player instruments, they obviously don't scream player instruments. What does he do? What are action potentials? Waves. Electrical waves, right? We'll have a wash of electricity flow over the atria. There is not a left side structure. I dropped a pebble in a pond. Here comes a ripple. It's that simple. They're just electrical waves instead of water. It's the same math, right? How long does that take?